Barack Hussein Obama II was born on August 4, 1961, in Honolulu, Hawaii, half a world away from Washington, D.C., yet destined to stand there one day. His father, Barack Obama Sr., had journeyed from Nyangoma, Kogelo, Kenya, on a scholarship sponsored by the Kennedy Airlift Program, a Cold War initiative that brought promising African students to American universities. His mother, Stanley Ann Dunham, came from the American heartland, Wichita, Kansas, raised by Stanley and Madeline Dunham, a furniture salesman and a bank vice president who believed that fairness and curiosity could bridge any distance. Hawaii, a meeting point of East and West, shaped Obama's earliest impressions. The island's cultural mix mirrored his own identity: Pacific, African, American. When his parents separated and later divorced, he remained with his mother, who taught him that education was the surest path to freedom. In 1967, she remarried an Indonesian geographer, Lolo Suatoro, and the family moved to Jakarta. Barack attended local schools, fed chickens in the yard, and saw a country still recovering from revolution. The young boy learned to adapt, to listen, to watch. By 1971, his mother, concerned about schooling, sent him back to Honolulu to live with his grandparents. At Punahou School, a prestigious prep academy, he excelled in academics and basketball while privately wrestling with who he was and where he belonged. He would later write, "The opportunity that Hawaii offered to experience a variety of cultures in a climate of mutual respect became an integral part of my worldview." Those years by the sea, reading and reflecting, prepared him for a wider world waiting beyond the horizon. In 1979, Obama left Hawaii for Occidental College in Los Angeles. He studied literature, politics, and philosophy, questioning authority, joining campus discussions about race and justice. But he felt restless. 2 years later, he transferred to Columbia University in New York City. New York was a different classroom, its skyscrapers and subways pulsing with inequality and ambition. Obama rented a small apartment near 125th Street, worked part-time at a publishing firm, and spent nights reading Baldwin, Ellison, and King. He graduated in 1983 with a BA in political science, specializing in international relations. Yet the degree didn't quiet the question that haunted him: how could ideals become action? After a brief stint at Business International Corporation and NY Public Interest Research Group, he decided that real change had to begin where people lived and struggled, at the community level. In 1985, he packed his few belongings and boarded a flight to Chicago, a city still scarred by deindustrialization and segregation. There, among shuttered steel mills and working-class churches, Barack Obama would find his calling. Obama arrived to work for the Developing Communities Project, a faith-based initiative on Chicago's far south side. His title was modest, community organizer, but his mission was vast: help residents rebuild jobs, housing, and dignity after factory closures. He knocked on doors, listened more than he spoke, and learned the rhythms of everyday struggle. He helped start job training programs, asbestos removal campaigns, and youth tutoring centers. Through it all, he discovered that progress was slow but possible when people found common cause. Chicago's pastors became his mentors, especially the fiery Reverend Jeremiah Wright of Trinity United Church of Christ. Through Wright's sermons, Obama encountered the deep intertwining of faith and justice that would later infuse his politics. In 1988, he decided to strengthen his skills formally. He applied to Harvard Law School, writing in his essay that he wanted to translate the struggles of ordinary people into the language of law and power. At Harvard, he thrived, becoming in 1990 the first African-American president of the Harvard Law Review, a national headline that hinted at a larger destiny. He graduated magna cum laude in 1991 and returned to Chicago, declining lucrative law firm offers to serve his community again. He joined the civil rights firm Minor, Barnhill and Galland, taught constitutional law at the University of Chicago, and lectured on equality, federalism, and the Bill of Rights. That same city would soon give him another lifelong partner. At the firm Sidley & Austin, a young associate named Michelle Robinson was assigned as his mentor. Their friendship became romance. Their shared values of service and family formed the bedrock of their marriage in 1992. They would eventually have two daughters, Malia, 1998, and Natasha Sasha, 2001, a future first family born from Southside beginnings. By the mid-1990s, Obama had become known in Chicago's civic circles for his intellect and calm persuasion. In 1995, he published Dreams from My Father, a lyrical memoir tracing his search for identity from Hawaii to Kenya. That same year, encouraged by allies, he launched a campaign for the Illinois State Senate, representing the 13th District on Chicago's South Side. He won in 1996. In Springfield, he quickly earned a reputation as a legislator who read every page of every bill. He worked on ethics reform, health care expansion for children, and tax credits for low-income workers. Colleagues, Republican and Democrat alike, respected his patience and analytical mind. At home, he and Michelle balanced politics and parenthood. He often drove back to Chicago nightly so he could see his young daughters before bed. In 2000, he tried and failed to win a U.S. House seat. The loss stung, but taught him resilience. He returned to the state Senate, refined his message, and waited. 4 years later, an unexpected opening appeared when Illinois Senator Peter Fitzgerald announced retirement. Obama entered the race for the U.S. Senate in 2004. Initially an underdog, his campaign surged with grassroots enthusiasm, brilliant organization, and his ability to inspire across lines of race and class. That summer, at the Democratic National Convention in Boston, he delivered a keynote address that transfixed the nation. There is not a liberal America and a conservative America. There is the United States of America. The speech rocketed him from local politician to national figure overnight. By November 2004, he won the Senate seat in a landslide, carrying 70% of the vote. The community organizer from Chicago's South Side was heading to Washington. When Barack Obama arrived in Washington in January 2005, the Senate was a world of marble, rules, and hierarchy. He was sworn in as the junior senator from Illinois, one of only 3 African Americans in the chamber's history at the time. He joined the Foreign Relations Committee and the Environment and Public Works Committee, quickly immersing himself in policy. His speeches, measured and articulate, stood out for their clarity. Obama worked with Republican Senator Richard Lugar on legislation to reduce the threat of loose nuclear weapons, visiting depots in the former Soviet Union. He pushed for government transparency and limits on lobbyist influence, earning a reputation as a pragmatic reformer. In 2006, he published The Audacity of Hope, a book that read as both political philosophy and a meditation on faith in democracy. Its success, immediate and global, fueled speculation about a presidential run. He denied interest at first, insisting that he needed more experience. But across America, readers and voters began to see in him something rare. A leader who seemed to understand both the poetry and the problems of ordinary life. By late 2006, the murmurs had become a movement. Advisors urged him to consider what just years earlier had seemed impossible. On February 10, 2007, at the old state capitol in Springfield, Illinois, the same site where Abraham Lincoln had delivered his House Divided speech, Barack Obama announced his candidacy for President of the United States. He stood in the freezing air, a young senator speaking of unity, responsibility, and renewal. In the face of our common challenges, we must act not as Republicans or Democrats, but as Americans. At first, few believed a freshman senator could challenge the formidable Hillary Clinton, long the presumed Democratic favorite. But Obama's campaign innovated, harnessing social media, empowering volunteers, and speaking to idealism without naivety. His slogan, "Yes, we can," was both a chant and a philosophy. It resonated across generational and racial lines, turning rallies into movements. After early victories in Iowa and South Carolina and months of grueling primaries, he secured the Democratic nomination in June 2008. He selected Senator Joe Biden of Delaware as his running mate, an experienced legislator to balance youth with depth. In the general election, he faced Senator John McCain, a decorated Vietnam veteran respected by both parties. The race unfolded against the backdrop of the 2008 financial crisis, the worst economic collapse since the Great Depression. Lehman Brothers had fallen, markets were in free fall, millions were losing homes and jobs. Amid fear and fatigue, Obama's calm, analytical demeanor stood out. On November 4, 2008, history was made. Barack Obama won with 365 electoral votes and nearly 70 million popular votes, the largest total ever at the time. That night, before a sea of flags and tears in Chicago's Grant Park, he spoke not of triumph, but of shared purpose. If there is anyone out there who still doubts that America is a place where all things are possible, tonight is your answer. Across the world, people celebrated a new chapter in American democracy. The son of a Kenyan student and a Kansas mother would become the 44th President of the United States, the first black man to hold that office. Barack Obama took office amid cascading crises, an economy in collapse, 2 wars abroad, and a nation divided by mistrust. He began with a message of hope, but also with the sober realism that change would be neither easy nor quick. In his inaugural address, he declared, "Starting today, we must pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and begin again the work of remaking America." Within his first month, he signed the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, an $800 billion stimulus package designed to save and create millions of jobs. His administration also rescued the failing auto industry, preventing the collapse of General Motors and Chrysler. By late 2009, the economy had stopped contracting. Unemployment remained high, but a foundation for recovery was taking shape. That same year, the Nobel Committee in Oslo awarded him the Nobel Peace Prize, not for what he had achieved, but for the promise of renewed diplomacy in a weary world. He responded humbly, calling the award a call to action. Healthcare reform. In 2010, after months of partisan battle, Congress passed the Affordable Care Act, expanding coverage to over 20 million Americans. The law ended lifetime limits, barred discrimination based on pre-existing conditions, and required insurers to cover essential benefits. The fight was bruising. Protests and misinformation flooded the airwaves. But for Obama, it was the fulfillment of a moral conviction that health care was not a privilege, but a right. Other domestic reforms. He signed the Dodd-Frank Act, tightening Wall Street oversight and creating the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau to safeguard ordinary citizens. He advanced clean energy incentives, promoted education grants, and repealed the military's "don't ask, don't tell" policy, allowing LGBTQ Americans to serve openly. Under his administration, the U.S. military also ended combat operations in Iraq and refocused efforts on Afghanistan. Challenges and backlash. Yet the cost of transformation was political polarization. The rise of the Tea Party movement, opposition in Congress, and racial undercurrents turned compromise into gridlock. Town halls erupted in anger. Online misinformation began shaping public opinion. Obama remained calm, sometimes to his critics, too calm. But his temperament was deliberate. He believed reason and patience were antidotes to hysteria. As he entered the second half of his presidency, global challenges awaited: terrorism, climate change, and the test of American leadership on the world stage. As the economic storm began to calm, Barack Obama turned outward, to the complex web of global crises that defined the early 21st century. His foreign policy vision, announced in speeches from Cairo to Prague, rested on dialogue, alliances, and the belief that American strength derived not only from power, but from example. The Middle East and terrorism. In May 2011, nearly a decade after September 11th, U.S. Navy SEALs raided a compound in Abbottabad, Pakistan, killing Osama bin Laden. Obama watched the operation unfold in the Situation Room, surrounded by his national security team. When he addressed the nation that night, he spoke not of vengeance, but of closure and vigilance. Justice has been done. Across America, spontaneous celebrations filled the streets, a cathartic moment for a generation that had lived under the shadow of terror. He also worked to reduce nuclear threats, signing the New START Treaty with Russia in 2010 and hosting global non-proliferation summits. But new challenges emerged: the Arab Spring, civil war in Syria, and the rise of ISIS, testing both his restraint and resolve. Critics said his cautious approach left vacuums of power. Supporters argued he had learned the limits of American intervention. His compass remained steady: to end unnecessary wars and rebuild America's reputation abroad. A pivot to diplomacy. In 2014, Obama reopened diplomatic relations with Cuba, ending more than 50 years of silence. The following year, the Iran nuclear deal was signed, an agreement limiting Iran's uranium enrichment in exchange for sanctions relief. It was controversial but historic, crafted through years of secret diplomacy. Meanwhile, he focused on the defining issue of the future: climate change. At the Paris Climate Conference of 2015, he joined nearly 200 nations in pledging to curb emissions, calling it a turning point for the planet. Recognition abroad. World leaders often described Obama as measured, pragmatic, and deeply analytical, a man who listened before he spoke. His Nobel Peace Prize, awarded early in his first term, had set expectations high. By the end of his presidency, history would judge him not by ideals alone, but by the stability his diplomacy achieved. Re-elected in 2012, Barack Obama began his second term facing both promise and polarization. He pledged to finish what he started: rebuild the middle class, confront gun violence, reform immigration, and address climate change. Domestic agenda. He expanded the Affordable Care Act's reach, defended it through court challenges, and signed executive orders protecting millions of undocumented immigrants from deportation under DACA and DAPA. His administration pushed for renewable energy investment and higher fuel standards, helping reduce U.S. carbon emissions to their lowest levels in decades. After the tragic Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting in December 2012, Obama called for comprehensive gun reform. His tearful address became one of his most human moments as president. Though Congress blocked major legislation, his empathy resonated nationwide. In June 2015, when a white supremacist murdered 9 worshippers at Emmanuel AME Church in Charleston, South Carolina, Obama delivered the eulogy, and in a moment of raw grace began to sing Amazing Grace. The nation wept with him. Later that same month, the Supreme Court legalized same-sex marriage in Obergefell v. Hodges. From the White House balcony that night, rainbow lights illuminated the building, a symbol of progress that defined his era. Global challenges abroad, crises continued, the war in Syria, tensions with Russia, and new cyber threats. Obama's steady but cautious foreign policy prioritized multilateral coalitions over unilateral action, reflecting his belief that America's leadership must be earned, not imposed. In 2014, the Ebola outbreak in West Africa prompted one of the largest global health responses in history, coordinated from the White House Situation Room. The U.S. led containment efforts that saved countless lives. Reflections on leadership. As his second term waned, Obama faced a sharply divided Congress and a nation struggling with cultural realignment. Yet he often reminded Americans that democracy was not about perfection, but persistence. The long sweep of America has been defined by forward motion, by people who fought and marched and sacrificed so that we could live up to our ideals. He left office in January 2017 with approval ratings near 60%, rare for a departing president, and with a legacy defined by dignity in the face of division. After 8 years in office, Barack Obama returned to private life not as a retired politician, but as a continuing citizen of the world. He and Michelle Obama founded the Obama Foundation, focusing on leadership training, civic engagement, and community innovation. Their production company, Higher Ground, began creating films and series highlighting stories of hope and perseverance. The Obama Presidential Center, under construction in Jackson Park, Chicago, symbolizes both legacy and renewal. A museum and public space dedicated not just to history, but to inspiring future generations to serve. Personal reflections. In 2020, Obama released his presidential memoir, A Promised Land. Written in his deliberate, reflective prose, it chronicled his rise from community organizer to commander-in-chief, revealing both triumphs and insecurities. He described late nights alone in the Oval Office, the constant weight of decisions that could change lives, and the grounding comfort of his family. The book became an international bestseller, translated into more than 24 languages, and offered a rare look inside the mind of a modern statesman. Michelle Obama's own memoir, Becoming, published 2 years earlier, had already become a global phenomenon, cementing the couple's influence as cultural and moral voices beyond politics. Continuing impact. Even out of office, Barack Obama remained engaged on issues of democracy, climate, and social equity. Through speeches, interviews, and global summits, he emphasized the importance of truth, science, and empathy in public life. Young leaders worldwide cite him as inspiration for entering public service, proof that the example of one person can ripple across generations. Closing reflection. Looking back, historians note that Obama's presidency bridged 2 centuries and 2 visions of America, one rooted in tradition, the other reaching toward inclusion. He inherited wars, a financial crisis, and deep racial divisions, yet left behind a more expansive view of what American possibility could mean. "We did not come to fear the future. We came here to shape it," he once said. That conviction endures, not as a campaign slogan, but as a testament to the quiet power of hope. From the shores of Hawaii to the halls of the White House, the journey of Barack Obama tells a story both personal and profoundly American, a story of identity, resilience, and faith in democracy's promise. His life reminds us that the measure of leadership is not perfection, but the courage to keep believing that tomorrow can be better than today. And so his journey, like America's, continues.